Welcome to this week's Timeout No Flop Zone, no flopping. I'm your host, Boti Nagy. Usually sitting next to me is Joey Wright. He's taking a bit of a sabbatical this week, and instead we have the man who many of us that have been around a bit longer regard as the actual voice of the NBL TV coverage, Mr. John Casey. Welcome, John.
Great to be here, Boti. I really enjoyed this show, so pleasure to be with you.
I'm glad to hear it because you've got such a great history in the game in terms of calling. You've seen pretty much most of all the important things that have happened across the league, maybe the first few years you were there, but basically everything. So what I'm going to throw to you now is how did you come to NBL commentary? Because I remember that you've done racing, boxing, football. How did basketball come into your life?
Look, I played early on, growing up in Broken Hill, on a dimly lit asphalt outdoor court at the local YMCA. Very poorly, I might add, as well. I wasn't much of a player, but that's where it started for me. Always loved basketball. And then when I moved to Premier Sports, which was the forerunner of Fox Sports, basketball was the first sport that they had taken on. Mm-hmm. So that was the first chance to actual commentary. Prior to that, here with Channel 7 in Adelaide, of Channel 10 as it was initially, running sidelines at Apollo Stadium back in the late 1980s. So that was my first introduction to it.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
I started young.
You've got a lot of great games under your belt. What do you think makes a great TV caller? Because we've got lots of players that are thrown into it, and some of them are good, some of them bad. What do you think it takes to give a good coverage from a vocal point of view of an NBL game?
I think you've got to try and take your audience there. Make them feel like they're in the stadium with you, because it's such a privileged position to be sitting so close, to have access to the players that we do as well. So my plan was always to make it as interesting as I could and to try and feel like what it'd be like for the spectator or the audience at home, someone watching the TV, and try and bring them there. But at the same time, you need to be able to tell the story of the game, whether that's via the stats, and that's why I keep a running sheet of all the notes that I can, so you can point things out. So my X's and O's, I'm not a coach. I don't understand the intricacies of the game as well as the coaches do. So I thought I needed to be able to provide something else, bring something else to the table. And that's why the stats and runs and how many points in a quarter and how many threes. And that sort of paints you a picture of the game for those who don't have access to a stats monitor right in front of them.
Yeah, I missed that about today's commentary, that you're not doing enough games, because I miss that sort of intimacy of knowing something, and when you give a fact about a player, it's pertinent and it's always at the right time. And so, yeah, I miss you, John. You need to be doing a few more NBL if you're watching. Get him on a few more games. Plus, you've got this great history. So the one I want to really pick your brain about is what is the key moment that you remember, or the key moments that you remember from right across the board that stand out, that I was there that day, that this happened, or what are the key ones?
So many. I mean, when you've been around for 5 decades, over 1,000 games, and when I ask players, what's your favourite memory? It is a tough question. It's really hard to know. But look, every grand final I've been at is memorable to me, and that's because it means so much to the players. That's why they're playing. That's why everyone is playing, is to win that championship. So to be involved and so close to the actions, I say, as a commentator, you're almost part of it, even though you're not worthy of being involved. But every grand final is a memory, and we only have to look back to last year's grand final, that 5-game series between Tassie and Melbourne, where Melbourne had a shot to win the whole competition, and then Tassie had a shot to win the whole competition, and McVeigh's 3, all those things. And
hang on a second, do you agree with me that single shot is the greatest shot in NBL history?
It's right there.
For what it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's hard. I know we're going to speak about Brice Cotton a little later, but it's hard to know because without seeing all of them and knowing the history of all of them. But it's undoubtedly, one of the greatest. And if someone said that's the greatest, and if you believe it is, and I would bow to your greater knowledge and experience, that it's certainly there. And I can't think of one it's been more important. Maybe there was. I don't know.
Well, the last shot won the game in '79. But that was a reverse layup, and then for New Zealand there was a last shot that won a game, but that was sort of a mid-range jump shot. McVeigh, when he got that ball and he took his couple of dribbles, he knew exactly what he was going to do. He crossed over. His focus was so good that when he released that, to win a grand final game with a shot like that, to me, I can't think of anything that compares to that one.
No,
but
That was game 3, and then we go to game 4, and Matthew Dellavedova's had a near identical shot for Melbourne to win the whole thing and misses. I mean, that would have surpassed it then, and maybe now that the one from McVeigh does certainly stand the test of time. It was so important. But, so all those grand finals have been fantastic. 2 funny things I'll never forget is the female streaker that we had at the West Sydney Razorbacks when Brett Maher was on the foul line and didn't miss a beat. Knocked down the first, the streaker ran straight past him up into the stands, and he knocks down the second, which he says is one of his greatest achievements, not being disturbed by the, he was padding his stats as usual, Marzi. That was hilarious. And I have to say, the other things I'd mention, of course, were outside the NBL, the international games.
Sure.
Obviously, calling the Opals winning the 06 gold medal in Russia, admittedly from Sydney, and the Boomers bronze medal. To be able to call that, admittedly from Melbourne, while they were in Tokyo, but certainly to share that commentary with Andrew Gaze and Andrew Boga, and to look across and see what that meant to them when they had won the bronze medal. Something that I'll never forget. Those 2 moments stand out as well. And even though you're not there, as we do with commentary these times, a lot of the time it is remote. It's a little bit different, but those moments stick with me as well.
You mentioned 2 of the great Australian basketballers there. Let's segue from that into your all-time NBL specific Australian first 5. If you had to pick a starting group across what you've seen, 1 to 5, how would you go?
It's a great question, and there's a lot of great players that are going to miss out. But look, I started with Phil Smythe because he was the general, and at the NBL level, and 3 championships, a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. He did it all. He created basketball in so many ways in Australia in the NBL, and I don't think he has a peer in terms of a point guard. And there've been some great ones, of course. And Andrew Gaze picks himself, obviously, at number 2. There's nothing. Is he the greatest player of all time?
If you're talking about male only, yes.
He is.
If you're talking
in the NBL,
yes, I think you can't argue with 7 MVPs and a heap of scoring records.
Titles.
But I mean, if I'm looking at who's Australia's greatest player of all time, I can't go past Lauren Jackson.
No, nor I.
But in the men, I think you have to go with Andrews.
So Andrews in there at the 3. I've picked Sam McKinnon, and there are a lot of people that could have been picked in this position. I think Mark Bradkey picks himself. 10-time leading rebounder. He's top 6 in scoring, leading rebounder of all time, and just a colossus. And I put Chris Anstey in there as well, which might surprise a few people, but Chris's record, even though he played 11 seasons, 5 times he was an all-NBL player, 2-time MVP, won a Defensive Player of the Year. 5 years he averaged a double-double. And so a lot of the players, longevity counts for me.
Yes, likewise.
So even though he only had 11, a lot of these other players that I couldn't fit in there, like Larry Sengstock and Ray Borner, even the first Australian MVP, who played an amazing career. 21 seasons he played. And he had 5 years where he averaged a double-double as well. Different sport, different eras. It's really hard to gauge. But they're the 5 that I came up with. And Sam McKinnon, as I mentioned, a 2-time champion MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. And I don't think I think he still had more to give. He was one of those players that just was able to do it so casually. But that's the 5 that I came up with. How does that compare with yours?
Well, I would be the same on Phil and Andrew and Mark Bradkey. In the 3 spot, I wouldn't have Sam, I'd have Ian Davies, but that's a sort of a romantic memory of what he used to bring.
I never got to see enough of him.
He filled stadiums. And there were, at that time when he was here, so we're talking early 80s, when he first arrived back from the US, an Australian didn't attract that sort of attention. I mean, now they do. Now we've got players that you want to go and see a Chris Goulding play. But Ian Davies was like, this great Australian player. So I have that memory of him. So that's what I'd have him at the 3. And I would also have Andrew Vlahov in my team, along with Mark Bradkey. And honourable mentions to Mark Worthington and to Chris Anstey, 2 guys that Anstey changed the game because he was the first big guy that could actually go out there and shoot threes, draw you out, and then go past you. So he was a very, very hard matchup. So I have no qualms with him being in your 5. But I'd have Vlahov in the 4 because I just remember him as being one of the toughest guys I've ever seen on the court. You know, you would love to be on a team with him.
Yeah.
If someone nails you, and you know that Vlahov's going to fix that up later.
I loved his theme was no blood, no foul. And as I said to him once, I said, if you could change any rules, what would you change? He said, well, I'd change it to no blood, no foul. And I said, yeah, that's about right.
All right, so let's move on to your first five, the starters of an import team.
An import team, yeah. Look, haven't we been blessed?
Yes.
So many fantastic players. Yes. And I think right from the first year with Cal Bruton, led the league in scoring in 1979. What the excitement that he and Al Green brought so early on in the NBL is fantastic. So shout out to Cal. I wasn't able to get him into my starting five. And when you consider championship winner as a player, championship winner as a coach, and of course father of CJ, who won 6 championships. I mean, his legacy to the NBL is right there. But I went with Ricky Grace as the starting point guard. 4-time championship winner, just got it done. I mean, everyone knew he was going left and they couldn't stop him. But Ricky Grace, I think, deserves the starting point guard role.
I actually wrote that once about him, that Ricky Grace goes left to leftist. And he saw it and he rang me up and he said, man, they still got to stop me.
Oh no, he was an absolute champion, and I put a lot of weight on championships, grand final MVPs as well, because they're the games where you have to perform, and he certainly performed on the big stage. Brice Cotton, a 4-time MVP. I think he's right now the best player. The modern era. I know you don't like this modern era. When we say current players, then so Brice is in there at number 2. Leroy Loggins, and I toss up between Leroy and James Crawford as my favourite import of all time, because for different reasons, but Leroy has to be in that, and it has to be in the conversation with Andrew of the greatest player of all time, I think. And that's, to me, the argument about Brice Cotton being the greatest ever import. If he can do it for a little bit longer, and he's getting there right now, and I said this a couple of years ago, well, now what he's doing, he's certainly challenging. But Leroy Loggins played 21 years and hit 44% from deep in his last year as a 43-year-old in 2001. Your mind explodes when you think about the numbers that Leroy was able to put up. A defensive player of the year twice as well. So he was known for his defense as well as his offense, and he just got the job done. So Leroy has to be in there. 10-time All-NBL team. It's just an amazing record for him. Mark Davis I've put in there, the chairman of the boards, 3-time championship winner, MVP, 5-time All-NBL, averaged 18 and 11 as an undersized big. You know,
what were they selling him as? 6'7"? And you sort of go, 6'5" in heels, maybe.
Yeah. Have you seen him in heels? We'll have to get to that story at some stage.
We'll do that one off here.
Maybe another time. And as I say, James Crawford, because he was, to me, I would pay money to go and watch him play. His standing start jump, and I think I've seen on your website a photograph of him blocking the shot with his elbow above the rim. His head is almost at the top of the backboard, but his ability to just explode off the floor without a run-up. You know, in those days, dunking wasn't like it is now. He was the one that you would say, you'd hope he gets the ball in the open court. 3-time championship winner, played 19 years, over 500 games, and just the excitement that he would bring. And as you say, you have to lean on those players that bring people through the game. And there's no doubt James Crawford, people would go to a game to watch James Crawford, even though he's playing with all these stars as well.
Do you recall in '95 when Perth Wildcats went to London to play in the McDonald's Championship, and they played the Houston Rockets? And they got flogged by the Houston Rockets. But the one player that looked like he belonged, he could move over to the Houston Rockets lineup, was Crawford. James was just fantastic. You thought this guy should have had an NBA career, because he didn't look at all out of place against the NBA players. The rest of the Wildcats, they were a bit overawed, but he was right at home. I couldn't agree with you more. I loved watching him play.
And of course, he had 57 for Perth, which now Brice Cotton has broken with that 59, which gives you an idea of his scoring capacity as well. That record had stood for so long.
So you've got 3 Perth Wildcats in your all-time five.
Well, they've won 10 titles.
Yeah, exactly right.
You know, twice as many as the next team. So, but all those players, and look, a shout out to Rob Rose, you know, and even Kevin Brooks. Now, Kevin Brooks, again, the only reason that Kevin Brooks isn't there is because of longevity. He didn't play enough.
Sure.
But look, if you go to YouTube, there's a mixtape of Kevin Brooks in his prime playing for the Adelaide 36ers, doing things that players today can't do.
Yeah.
He was elite. He was NBA starting five quality when he was playing here, even though he perhaps wasn't in the NBA. But what he did, the way he played, he was an amazing player, and only not in that if he had been here for a little bit longer. But when you look at the people that I've mentioned who have been here longer and achieved more, but you know, Darnell Mee's another one who I would have liked to have got in there as well. So
come on, so it's supposed to be 5, John.
Yeah,
we could go on for an hour.
You could
with some of that, because I mean, just mentioning Kevin Brooks, I remember game 1 of that '98 series final against Southeast Melbourne. And it was a Sunday game, and the Sixers got to 19 ahead, and were pretty much cruising. And then the Magic made their run, and they came back, and everybody was tightening up in the venue. And then Kevin Brooks just said, "No, wait a second, we're winning this. We're going over there 1-up."
Yeah.
And he just went bang bang. He was fantastic.
Yeah, yes. Superstar.
So let's move to current times, and Brice Cotton's 59.
Yeah.
Where do you rate that? In the modern era or the prehistoric era or whatever, like how do you like that 59?
It was amazing, wasn't it? And without doubt, one of the greatest performances ever in NBL history. So we're in year 47, and it's right up there. I can't say it's definitively the greatest ever, because of the 5 scores superior to his 59, I didn't see all the games. So you don't know the context, and it's hard to say one was better than the other. I mean, if you extrapolate Brice's numbers out over a 48-minute game, surprise, ironically, it measures 71, which is the same as our green, which is the high water mark. So it's equal to the highest ever if you extrapolate it out. But Andrew Gaze had 59 and 11 assists, which, yes, admittedly a 48-minute game, but to compare with Brice's 59 and 7 assists. I mean, Shane Hill had 61. Reg Biddings, we know, 63. In a 40-minute had 63. So how do you compare that? And there was one that really stuck out when I went back and looked a little bit about this, was Jason Reese. Now, a lot of people probably haven't heard about Jason Reese. Played in Canberra in 1992. He had 54 and 22 rebounds.
Yeah.
And the 54 came in 34 minutes. Now, Brice the other night played 39. So 5 minutes less than Brice, and got 54 compared with 59, and added 22 rebounds. So that, if I'd seen that game in totality and was there, I might be arguing that was superior.
Sure.
But I wasn't there, and I don't know. And the other one I'll mention is Brice's 45 in the grand final. Now, his shooting percentage was superior. He again hit 7 threes, and it was a grand final. And on that occasion, the Hawks, the Illawarra Hawks, were all over him. They sent everyone at him. They all had a crack at him, and they just couldn't stop him. The other night when he got the 59, the opposition was weakened, obviously, with those injuries that they had. And that's to take nothing away, as I say. Sure. If someone wants to say that's the greatest offensive output they've ever seen, 59 and 7 in 7 assists in a 40-minute game, I'm not going to argue with them. I can't say definitively it's the greatest ever, but without doubt, in the 47 years that we've been playing the NBL, one of the greatest performances ever seen.
I don't think there can be any dispute about that. That was a phenomenal thing to watch, And as you say, some of those games, those record-making games, we didn't see them, so it's really hard to compare. The Jason Reese, thank you for bringing that out, because that's going to shock everybody, myself included. But that's a great one.
I want to know why he played 34 minutes, because he didn't foul out. And I was thinking, someone's got 54 and 22 rebounds. And I guess we see that these days where players get taken out, and you think, no, let them go. We want to see these numbers.
I always think that. If a guy's rolling especially, leave him out there.
I'll tell you, one of the greatest things about the Brice Cotton performance, I will say, though, is that because of the numbers, it's shed a light on Reg Biddings and the 1979 to 1983 era when we played 40 minutes back then as well. So we're learning more about the history of the game, and I think that's a good thing, because it's all part of the competition.
Okay, we'll take a break.
Paddy Mills Beyond Basketball is a tribute to Australia's greatest current Indigenous sportsman, an inspirational Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander whose uniform hangs at St Mary's College in California. A man instrumental in the San Antonio Spurs winning an NBA championship, and the basketballer who gave Australia its greatest individual performance in an Olympic medal round, when he steered the Boomers to bronze in Tokyo. Yet it could have been so different. Had it not been for AFL and Collingwood superstar Scott Pendlebury rejecting a basketball scholarship to the Australian Institute of Sport, the Paddy Mills story would have been very different. This is his inspirational story and journey intertwined with the history of the Boomers. Prepare to be amazed and moved. Paddy Mills Beyond Basketball.
We're back and we haven't changed a bit. So, NBA, have you been following Dyson Daniels?
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really happy to see him do so well. I think he was underrated. His performance at the Olympics was outstanding.
Wasn't it?
And moving to a new team and the way putting up numbers that are putting him in for conversation in terms of comparison with stats with Michael Jordan. Anytime you're there,
Yeah.
you know you're doing well.
Well, anytime anyone from Australia is leading a statistical category in the NBA, that in itself is hats off. But we've got the Josh Green NBA Player of the Week coming up right now.
Time. Make it hurt, Josh. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, the fortitude of the Aussie. Oh, yes! Josh Green.
Talking Joshes, Josh Giddey's just come off a triple-double. We'll show you some of the highlights of that.
Giddy drives, Giddy kicks. Montas Buzelis, have a night. Giddy the rebound.
Silky. That might stick.
Oh, good pass. Nice feed by Giddy.
Giddy with the touch pass. That was like a volleyball setup.
He's got 5 boards, 12 points, 3 assists in 17 minutes. Behind the back for a Vucevic 3.
Oh, bang, bang, bang. Vuce, man. Doesn't know where Vuce is on that trail. Behind the back pass. And Vuce knows what to do with it. Bang, bang, bang.
Here comes Giddy behind the back, all the way.
Yeah, you can see Giddy was getting frustrated with Milton on the other end. Thought he got fouled. Watch this. Go behind the back. Whoop. Shake got shook. There's the foul right there. Able to finish again. The bench came in, gave him 40 points. Oh, give me that.
Josh Giddey with the steal and the slam.
Oh, jam. Josh.
Let's talk NBL Round 11. The season's starting to settle in. You're starting to sort of know what to expect from most of the teams. Is there anybody that's surprised you so far this season?
I don't think so much as surprise, but it's wide open again, isn't it? It's it's incredible to think that after a slow start, Tasmania are coming good.
Yeah.
Melbourne have been dominant, but I don't think so much of a surprise. But it's interesting that over the last 3 weeks, I think 16 of the last 20 games have been won by the home team. Now, early on, it was almost 50-50.
Yeah.
Home court advantage is starting to stick, and what we are seeing is injuries starting to impact even more so. And I guess the deeper you get into the season, the more they are meaningful. I know that there was injuries, particularly Tassie, without McDonald earlier in the season, and Taron Armstrong.
That was huge. I think people overlooked how huge that is.
Yeah, without a doubt.
McDonald's a very important component of that whole group.
Yeah.
So we start with Melbourne on the road to New Zealand. That's 1 versus 3.
Yeah.
Who do you see winning that?
Look, I can't tip against Melbourne at the moment. They just find a way to win. And I guess New Zealand with those injury problems that they've got and, trying to integrate Taco Fall into the lineup. I know a lot's been spoken about his introduction, and it looks as though he's now injured. But there's certainly, I know you're shaking your head. Plenty of people are.
Because a 7'6" man has got so much more body to look after. There's so much more
and was injured.
Scope for injury. Yeah.
When he arrived.
When he arrived.
Yeah.
And you sort of go, he's 7'6", and the NBA didn't want him. that sort of sends an alarm bell to me.
Look, and he only played 37 games in the NBA, averaged 3 points a game over 3 seasons. He's an anomaly in the fact that he's 229 centimetres.
Yep.
But will he work in this league? And now they've upset their whole routine and the equilibrium of the team. So right now, I think Melbourne can go there and beat New Zealand. And New Zealand, you wonder about what's going to happen for the rest of the season with them.
I think they've got some issues now to address. No Chris Goulding for Melbourne, but I think Ian Clark, Flynn Cameron, they got Tanner Krebs, they got enough guys that can step up.
Their guard rotation is extraordinary when you look at it, isn't it?
It's the best we've seen for a while.
Delhi coming off the bench at times, Illy coming off the bench, Defensive Player of the Year, and like you say, I think Flynn Cameron would start on a lot of teams regularly and has really grown in the last year and a bit.
Bit overlooked, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've got Cairns in Tasmania. Who do you like there?
Well, hard to tip Cairns at the moment with a 9-game losing streak that they're on at the moment. Tassie coming good, won 3 in a row. Always hard to be there. Look, I can't believe that teams are picking Tasmania as for the summer shootout to go there and rack up a high score. Perth and Adelaide.
They're a team that play defense. They play defense.
Yeah.
I'd be picking like Perth. What have they given up in the? They even go for 112 points.
They give up a lot. But their home record is 6-2. They're hard to beat over there.
Yeah.
They invariably win. But there are a couple of teams that I think if you're in the summer shootout and you're looking to make some money, $100,000 for the fans I think is outstanding. But there's a game where Illawarra go to Cairns I think is one to pick. And Sydney going to Brisbane, Sydney didn't pick that game. I don't know why, because you look at their record, it's outstanding. Yeah. But I think, but at the moment, home teams are hard to beat. So Tassie at home, you won't tip against them very often.
Brisbane Adelaide, which will be a reunion for the 40-year 1985 Brisbane Bullets team, which beat Adelaide in the final.
Yeah.
So you'll have all those guys there.
Fantastic heritage round. I love it. Love every moment of it.
Brisbane might get that.
I think they will as well. DJ Vasiljevic, as you reported yesterday, is out now with a hamstring injury on top of the 2 imports not being here. So a big chance for Brisbane. Casey Prather back in form. And Adelaide, well, they're going to have their backs against the wall there.
Another big one, Perth, Illawarra.
That's a great game.
Yes.
That is a really good game. I just think Perth matches up well with Illawarra. They like Illawarra's style of game. They'll get out and run as well. Okay, you can get 110. We're going to get 115. And Brice might get 50 again. I think Illawarra suits Perth. And as I say, their record at home is very, very good. And the Hawks in Perth for a long time couldn't win there at all.
Historically, yes. But in the modern era, they really struggled.
But I'll go with the Wildcats there.
I'm going to go with the Hawks on that one. New Zealand and Sydney.
Tough game to pick. I think Sydney can win on the road.
Yeah.
Again, New Zealand with the problems that we've mentioned.
Southeast Melbourne, Cairns.
Phoenix looking good under Josh King. Interesting comment from Josh King recently when he was asked about his first impressions of the league. Said he thought that the NBL was a less tactical league than those that he'd been in Germany and Turkey and elsewhere. I don't know, what do you make of the less tactical?
I'm seeing more and more teams try to go to the NBA style where it's pick and roll, it's drive, dish to the corner, one more pass for the 3, or one-on-one style basketball. And you don't see a lot of teams come out and throw a zone press or, explore more options that are basketball options. You don't see that as much. So he might have a point.
My question to him when he gets to Adelaide is, can you make it a more tactical league? Can he be proactive and do that? Because I agree with it. The NBA a lot of the time is unwatchable.
Yeah.
And some of the NBL games where teams are spraying up threes, half their shots or more than half their shots are threes and they're shooting 28%. I know the theory behind 3 and 2, but for a purist, for a basketball entertainment,
it's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch sometimes.
Yep. Melbourne at home to Brisbane.
Melbourne strong at home, yep.
And finally, Adelaide and Perth.
Interesting game, isn't it?
Yeah, in Adelaide. Are you doing that one?
Yes, we are, and we're calling the game from in the venue. So it'll be a great game. Look, Kendrick Davis will be back. Montrez will be in the house, but not playing. And no DJ Vasiljevic. Look, the Wildcats, I think we saw enough from Adelaide just being a little brittle without all their players. And even though Kendrick comes back, Kendrick then has to be reintegrated. And that's going to take 5 minutes or so. It can't be at his best or their best now that what happened in the last previous 2 games. So I think Perth can steal the win here.
Likewise, although I did like Keanu Rasmussen.
Outstanding.
I think he did really well with the opportunity he had.
Yeah, and let's hope that those bench players do get to see a little bit more time moving forward because look what happened. He was outstanding, fearless, made some big shots, and he's actually, I know him through my son who plays with his brother, and he had a chance to take a shot there right at the death, and he turned it down, and I thought, well, he did the right thing, but gee, I wish he pulled the trigger on it. And from the elbow, he was open, and I sort of like, can make your name. But then, of course, you miss it, and then maybe next time he's not getting 22 minutes. You got to know your limitations, I think, was what Clint Eastwood suggested.
Magnum Force. Great movie. Great having you on. Thanks for joining us, John. And we'll be back again next week.